City Hall, 411 West Lincoln Trail Boulevard, Radcliffe, Kentucky. And this meeting will now come to order. Hugh Cross, who is Chairman of Trustees, the Stovall United Methodist Church, will deliver an invocation. Would you please stand?
I'm at to each one of you to bow your head as I pray. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for the many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you for loving us from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them with wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work and around our beloved city of Radcliffe. In his most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you join us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. England, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Barbara Baker.
Here.
Stan Holmes.
Present.
Edward Palmer.
Here.
Tanya Seabrooks.
Here.
Kim Thompson.
Here.
Chris Yates.
Here.
City Council is present, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. If you were employed by the Radcliffe Police Department, would you please stand? The Radcliffe Police Department is not here tonight because there's a crisis or because we need protection. They're here tonight because they have answered a lot of crisis situations and they have protected people for a long period of time. And with that, I'm going to read the proclamation, and the proclamation that I'm going to read will be given to the chief tonight, and it will be in the Sentinel next week. If you're a policeman, you can now stand. You don't have to stand for the whole thing. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation that designated May 15th as Police Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which that date falls as Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the City of Radcliffe play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms which are guaranteed by the Constitution and in protecting the lives and property of the citizens of the City of Radcliffe. And whereas it is important that all citizens of the City of Radcliffe know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department and the necessity for cooperating with them in maintaining law and order, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression and intimidation. And whereas the police department of the City of Radcliffe has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service, and whereas Radcliffe police officers, past and present, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, rendered a dedicated service to this community, and in so doing have established an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of our citizens. And now, therefore, I call upon all citizens of the city and upon all patriotic civil and educational organizations to join in paying tribute to the men and women of Radcliffe law enforcement in observing the week of May 13th as Police Week, signed by me, J. Michael Weaver, this day 2018. And now we switch from the police department to the fire department. Because Jamie Henderson is first on the list to discuss a proposal to amend the code of ordinances of the city. You're up.
All right, and I'm back again. How is everybody? Good. Good.
How are you?
Doing good. I just want to come upon you today. I told you once we started this, there'd be certain things that
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
I disagree. No, I disagree with, and when I did find those things, that we'd sort of bring them to your all's attention to get some insight on that thing. So, what I'm bringing to your attention is 8-1 prohibited storage, section C. Basically, what it's saying is a lot of these cars that we're faced with in folks' neighborhoods, we're getting calls on complaints, storage of automobile parts, that sort of thing. Ron's getting in there and actually giving them 30 days for removal. Once the folks don't decide that they don't want to remove those vehicles, we give them the option of a car cover. So I just totally disagree with the car cover or the tarpaulins. For one, they're going to Walmart and getting the big blue or orange ones and putting them on there, and you can imagine what that looks like after a couple days. So the car covers, they're getting into the point to where the vehicle sits there 5 to 6 months, the car covers are faded, they're starting to rip, they're starting to flap in the wind, that sort of thing. So we're wanting to basically omit those from the ordinance altogether. My goal is eventually, obviously, we're looking at cleaning the neighborhoods up along with the city streets and the businesses. So the eyesores, if the vehicle is actually an eyesore, giving them 30 days, they can take that to the code enforcement board. If they do disagree with it, let the code enforcement board decide if they want to give them more time or if it thinks that yeah, it needs to be removed from there. So I just need somebody, maybe some insight. I know Barbara maybe disagreed with some of this, so maybe some insight of where you all think and where we need to go with this.
Or you're saying they're not allowed to cover the cars?
Yeah, basically what we're doing is when you're covering the car, it's basically making it a more of an eyesore than if the car is actually not covered.
So would they be fined if they cover a car?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're not going to recommend them to cover a car because we got a nuisance violation or something against them.
But if they have a car and they want to cover it to keep the pollen and
Yeah,
stuff off, that's allowed? Because
Yeah, I mean, they're on their own there, yeah, I mean, that's their own vehicle. But we're not gonna recommend, we get a complaint on a vehicle that's damaged, we got one now, I'll give you some insight on one, gotta watch what I say. But, there's one on the southern end of town that we dealt with probably 6 months ago, it's wrecked. Tires were all flat, grass growing up around it, garbage all over around it. They aired the tires up, put a tarp over it, put a car cover over it. Now it's 5, 6 months later, guess what? Tires are all flat, car cover's halfway off of it, and we're back again dealing with the same thing. It's a wrecked vehicle. I mean, at what point in time do you say, enough's enough, we need to move forward?
what provisions would you have in that if somebody's trying to restore a vehicle? Because that's a pretty big thing with
Yeah.
historic vehicles. So
Yeah,
how
and
would that be treated differently?
And if we did look into it, that's why I say send it to the, either the code enforcement officer can do it or the code enforcement board. I would rather go to the code enforcement board. The code enforcement board say, okay, yeah, we'll give you an additional 3 to 6 months. And after that point in time, we'll send it back to the code enforcement officer. The code enforcement officer will revisit that site 3 to 6 months later, take additional pictures, revisit it to the code enforcement board, and then the code enforcement board decides from there where they want to go with it.
When we talked before, you said that this contradicts
No, no.
Not this
I said
one.
there's
Some
some,
of
I
them
said
that
there's
do.
some of the code, I said some of the ordinances and that's why I said a lot of these things will be coming back later on down the road for more things, because some of the ordinance are contradicting what the property maintenance code is saying. So we want to say it's either this way or this way. We don't want to go, obviously the ordinances are obviously going to supersede whatever the code or the international property maintenance code says, but.
Right. But I tried to look that up.
Mhm.
You can't find it on the
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah, that was
You can find where
something
you
that-
can buy the book for $30-some, and surely we're not expecting every individual citizen to buy the book so they know the rules. So
Yeah, and it's
we
not
need to
like.
make sure the rules are clear in our ordinance and not get rid of it's okay for this person and it's not okay for that person.
Yeah, and that's
You
what
need
we're
to take
trying
that
to do.
out of
We're
it.
trying to streamline everything, so everybody is neutral, everybody is straight across the board, the same rules apply for everybody. That's what.
But if you
and-
send it to the code enforcement board and they can pick and choose, like you said, then we're better if we make the ordinance
Uh-huh.
correct
The
instead of
guidelines,
just.
and that's what I'm asking. What would you like to do? If that's something that you guys want to do, to put a guideline in here, if you're actually working on the vehicle, then we issue something, I hate to say permit,
Extension.
because an extension of some sort for 3 to 6 months, we reevaluate 3 to 6 months. If nothing has changed in those 3 to 6 months, then obviously nobody's going to work on it. I mean, Ron's getting complaints and actually going to people's houses, and the wives are thanking them because they want the husband to get rid of the vehicles. So I mean, there's obviously
Right, but
yeah,
I mean,
there's
that's
obviously
putting us in the
issues.
middle of a domestic issue at that point.
Yeah, and I'm just bringing it up just to, it was funny. So it's,
So are we seeing a lot of these, Jamie, you saying when they're?
yeah, he had 5 just this week, so.
5 this week.
Yeah.
This week, it's only Monday.
Well, I say this week to revisit, so he had 5 from last week.
One thing, Chief, on the ordinance as is, section 87C talks about a tarpaulin or a car cover in which the motor vehicle or motor vehicle accessories cannot be seen by the public.
Mhm.
So if there's a vehicle with 4 flat tires and the cover doesn't cover the flat tires, then that's a violation of the ordinance.
Yeah, and the car covers, most car covers don't.
They
So,
don't,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
it's 4 flat tires, that's an accessory and that can be seen, and that's not legal.
Yeah, and that's why we keep going back and say air up the tires, air up the tires, air up the tires.
And I'm totally in agreement with Barbara here as far as, making the law fit everyone. It shouldn't be, to the point where we're seeing this where if they come to the code enforcement, then it's an option between, okay, we'll extend this one and not this one.
Mhm.
And we need to have some in place that's consistent for everyone.
Yeah, very much so. I agree totally. We just need to put something in place because this is not working, obviously.
Jamie, how does this compare to the expectations of commercial folks? Like it took us forever to get Grove Street cleaned up.
Yeah, and that's different. That goes somewhat under the fire code also. So we were able to use the fire code and this. But yes, this would actually, I guess, Mike, wouldn't it? You could actually, it says, well, the actual property maintenance code says actually residential or commercial, doesn't it?
Right,
So-
because I just don't want there to be a case where we're harassing some citizen for having a
Yeah.
car in his driveway.
Yeah.
And then we've got some place in town that's got junk cars and grass growing up around them.
Yeah, and we're trying to do things. Like I said, I need help.
And again, that goes to my point. That's what I mean by making sure
Yeah.
it fits all.
Yeah, and we're very much so. We're not about being this way with one person, this way with another. By all means, we're straightforward. So any way we can,
Fair and even-handed enforcement.
Correct.
And clear expectations, I mean, those are always the goals,
Yes.
obviously.
very much so.
But
And
we
the-
haven't always had that in the past, so that's why we have to.
Yeah, but it's not, it's now we're here, so I'm trying to move forward. It's the way I've always done business, and that's the way I
So we
expect
just have to
everybody
make
that's
sure
underneath
history
me.
doesn't repeat itself is why I'm
Yeah.
trying to be
Understand.
clear.
Good job, Jamie.
Well, thank you.
What you're doing, Jamie, is you're fishing. You're hoping one of the 6 before you will do an amendment to the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Not
That's what
you, but one of the 6 up here.
Yes, yes,
And then the 6 up here would decide whether it's something they want to pass or not.
very much so.
You're just telling us you think there's a need.
Exactly. So,
Okay. we got you.
And I think if we work with it and get a provision in there for people that are restoring vehicles or that sort of thing.
Yeah, very much so. Like I said, if we bring it forth, just to, same thing Mayor said. So just somebody here, if we want to work with me, it'd be great. We can get it together and get it moving forward. Like I said, this won't be the only, I'm sure there'll be other things down the road once we move forward.
Right, because you said some of them were in
Yeah, some of them are
conflict.
contradicting themselves, but like I said, we'll have to dig into those to make sure I'm reading it right. I may have to get with Mike here. He understands little things better than I do, so,
Okay,
all right,
Well, if you're looking for somebody to work with you, I'd be glad to work with you on this, so.
all right,
thank you.
all right, good, thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Murray Weiner, you're up next on the Stovall subdivision.
You can go by them. Go by them. You go by them.
Okay, Stovall Methodist Church submitted the record plat of Stovall subdivision for review on April 16th, 2018. If you look in your packet, you can see that we've attached a copy of that plat. The plat illustrates a subdivision and a dedication of a 40-foot right-of-way for the existing Stovall Church Road as a public right-of-way. And I've included a section from Kentucky Revised Statutes 82.400, procedure for dedicating public way or easement. And that section, just in summary, states that the legislative body, being the city council, would have to approve the plat in order to accept that public way. And staff recommendation is that the record plat of Stovall subdivision dedicating Stovall Church Road as a 40-foot public way be approved by the council for acceptance and road maintenance. Just to give you a little bit more information too, if you look at that plat, at the northern portion of the plat, it shows Stovall Church Road 40-foot right-of-way, and it's not hatched and shaded. It's just written on there. Well, that portion has already been dedicated on other plats, and there's some houses back there. Those people have to traverse the church property through private property to get out to Rogersville Road. So the church is actually doing this for a completely different reason, but in the scope of performing the plat and working on this subdivision, it was submitted in such a way that it showed it as a 40-foot right-of-way, which that section has not actually been platted and dedicated as such until they've proposed this subdivision. So the purpose of the plat was to create 3 lots out of their property and to have the cemetery on a separate lot than the church and the parsonage. In a sense, to kind of protect the cemetery on its own separate lot. So that's kind of some background as to how we've arrived at this, but also it makes sense to set aside a portion of right-of-way connecting to the existing right-of-way, tying in with it to allow those people to cross the church property in order to get to Rogersville Road to another public right-of-way.
Is that their only exit?
Yes.
So who was the developer?
Um,
That developed back that, I mean, at that time, did
Yeah.
anybody not notice that was an issue?
I'm not sure who developed that back there, to be quite honest. It's been quite some time ago.
But there's no new construction going on back there now, right?
No.
And is it 40 foot all the way? Because that one area looks like it's bigger, if we're going by the light gray.
Yeah, I mean, it should be 40 feet. Might be just a little wider at that point, but usually when they dedicate roads, sometimes it might be a little beyond that in a section. And generally, they'll just use the term 40 foot as a general basis because probably 90% of that road is at 40 feet. if necessary, you could always measure to that point if there was a slight deviation beyond 40 feet.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go look at it over the weekend. I'll do it before the regular meeting.
Any other questions of Murray? You need some more time there?
No, I said pretty cut and dry. I see what he's trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Murray.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Murray.
Thanks.
Bob Moore, I think you are alone, aren't you? You gonna- As the treasurer, you're going to present your budget?
Charlie will be here next week to do this. Well, if my battery doesn't die, I'd like for you to watch the commercial up here. If the battery doesn't die, I'd like for you to watch our commercial.
History of our country and the history of our state, Radcliffe and Fort Knox are full of memories yet to be made. Stop and remember at the September 11th Memorial. Stop and breathe in Saunders Springs Nature Preserve. Stop and sip at Boundary Oak Distillery. But whatever you do, take the golden opportunity to stop in and stay a while with friends and family. Stop.
Well, you got the idea. This is the TV commercial that we've done this year, this being played in the eastern part of the state. Hopefully, we will have generated back the information and all the diagnostics to show us whether that was a successful thing or not. We also have a Pandora radio spot.
Welcome, all history buffs, sightseers, nature lovers, explorers, bikers, and hikers. Radcliffe Fort Knox offers up down-home friendliness and family fun for visitors of all ages. Special highlights include the Patton Museum, Fort Duffield, Saunders Springs Nature Preserve, and Boundary Oak Distillery. Come to Radcliffe Fort Knox and experience Kentucky's unbridled spirit. Learn more at radcliffetourism.org, 800-334-7540.
That's running on Pandora in the St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis markets. And when that is finished, we will get the diagnostics to show us who was listening and who was engaged at those times. And we also have all of the feedback when they go on our website and that sort of thing. So new this year is the radio ads and TV ads. These are the first times we've done that. We're going to look at all the data. We went ahead in the budget for next year and included the monies for those in case we choose to go back and do that, but we will look at all of that data and make decisions on whether we like what Pandora did, whether we like what the TV folks did, and that sort of thing. So these were new for this year. We hope to be able to be repeating it next year. So here's next year's budget, and I'm going to go through, and Stan, you guys asked last year if we would give you copies of this several days ahead, and we've done that. And Kelly and Charlie and I thought it might be a good idea to come in here actually during the work session and give you a little bit more opportunity to ask questions and explain this budget a little bit more than we do when we just show up to the meetings. So I'm going to go through the income first. The $237,000 transit room tax is pretty standard. That's what we've been averaging for the last couple of years. We will exceed that this year by a little bit. We were a little concerned for a while this fall or this spring that we were running a little bit behind in collections, but we've caught back up. So we're going to continue with that same general number for our budget outlook for next year. The next line on there is the $1,200 interest. All the interest and dividends that we get from our CDs and our money market funds go back into our checking account, and we use that for budgeting purposes. The third item on there is the $12,000 matching funds that comes from the state. We do a 3% add-on. They do a 1% add-on. And there are specific things that they ask us to do, and if we do those things, they will match our funds. We will exceed the $12,000 this year by a little bit because they are helping us with the TV ad. So if we repeat the TV ad next year, we will have a little bit more coming back in than the $12,000. The next item on there is a money market for $21,880, and I'm going to cover that specifically separately because there's three components of that, and I'll go through that with you. In the administrative side of our budget, not a whole lot changed in the normal things, with two exceptions. In our salaries, we had not done a salary increase in 3 years. So we recommended a little over 2% salary increase for our 2 employees. That's keeping with what the city has done and what the cost of living has been. That will add $1,500 to the annual budget. That's what that does. The second part of that, and that's in the regular budget, coming out of that 21,880 is our computers. Our computer systems are over 5 years old. The hardware's out of date. The software's out of date. We've had some difficulties with the software on Debbie's a couple of months ago. We weren't sure we were going to have to replace it at that point. So we're going to bite the bullet and replace both computer systems this year. So that's going to be about $3,100. In the advertising side of it, not a whole lot has changed except for the $18,000. The $18,000 in part of this, the money market carry forward 21,880. The Vine Grove Bluegrass Festival for 2019 is their 20th anniversary. They have provisionally signed Vince Gill as their headline performer. Vince Gill is currently on tour with the Eagles. He and his promoters have agreed to come in the 2019 September show. That will be a 4-day show rather than a 3-day show. We do make money from that venue. They do stay in our motels. We already have booked for the 2018 show. They do not have, since they're putting on their funding for the 2018 show, they ask us if we would front the $15,000 necessary to lock in Vince Gill. That is a refundable amount from the promoters. If Vince Gill decides, if the Eagles continue their tour and Vince Gill decides to go with it and they return that $15,000, that will come back to us. So the total of $18,000 is a one-line item budget for them for the 2019 show. $15,000 of that would go for the refundable, and the $3,000 would be our normal amount that we would budget for them for that year. So that, in a synopsis, is the major changes. Those are the big issues. The small salary increase. We're having to replace our computer systems, and we have agreed in principle to do an upfront funding of the $15K for the Bluegrass Festival. That's a refundable amount in case Vince Gill does not come. Any questions? We, as you know, do print media, we do radio, we do TV, and as well as the internet. So we've covered everything that we can cover.
Mr. Moore, this, except for those few items you said, is basically a carbon copy of last year.
Pretty much exactly. There's very small changes in some of our anticipated cost for electricity and taxes, but very small. I think we added a couple $100, but incrementally it's the same.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Would you just reiterate, because sometimes people get confused when it comes to tourism, and they expect to see our local ads on their local TV. Can you explain a little bit?
You won't see
how
our
that-
ads. We're not going to advertise locally. We advertise in the distance. And with Pandora, when we talked to them, they recommended those 3 venues because they're far enough away that if they come here to do the Boundary Oak and the other things to start the Bourbon Trail here, which is what we push for them to do, they're going to spend the night here.
Right.
They're far enough to come here and have to spend the night, but not so far that they're just going to go, nah, we're not going to mess with
Not
you
a
guys.
day trip. It's
Not a
two-day
day trip. Yeah. The TV ad, on the other hand, is Eastern Kentucky, and we're going to analyze that and see whether that actually produced anything with us or not. But we had some funding help with that one.
So for the purpose of the audience, as she's saying, you're trying to get people here
Yes.
to our city so
Yes.
that they can enjoy the tourism that we
Yes.
have.
And in more local, you know, we have all of our pamphlets and everything that we put out on all the highways and all of the other facilities, so people want to see what we've got in a more local. And when you know, technology is a great thing. When people come here, we've talked to the military folks, the first thing to do is what's to do in Radcliffe, and they do Google. And if you do Google, the first thing you get is TripAdvisor, and the second thing you get is our website. And that generates a great deal of interest because we get a lot of phone calls and a lot of follow-up on that, request for information.
So you check to see whether you can get us on
Yes.
TripAdvisor?
Yep. Yeah, I do. And Saunders Springs, by the way, is our top interest area. Everybody asks, when they call in and ask for information, they want to know about Saunders Springs.
Yeah, and at your all's meetings, I usually go try to make your all's meetings. And Ms. Barron says how many hits were made on the website, how many on the app.
Yes.
And it's amazing the numbers that we get. Sometimes I think we don't think of this as a tourist typical area, but other people do, so that's good. And it shows with those figures.
Yeah, the outdoor things, as you say, the outdoor things are big, and Saunders Springs and Tioga Falls and the others are really high interest areas, and we do get a ton of hits, over 1 million.
Yeah, good work.
Any other questions?
Who does your website?
What is it?
Just curious, who does your website?
We pay for that. I don't know the guy's name, but, yeah. I hate to answer that way, but I don't know his
No,
name.
you're fine.
Yeah. I can ask Kelly.
No.
Anybody else?
Bob, that's a nice picture of you and your daughter.
Oh, that's, I'll let her know that. Yeah,
How does that fit into this briefing?
I have no idea. That was one of our cruises, by the way, Ed.
You should try taking your wife one time.
I will. We'll see you next Tuesday, and I think Charlie will be with me.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Toby Spalding. Before he starts on this, the sheet that you have has Old Castle precast and then the same name twice. Change that second name to S&M precast.
Oh,
That was gonna
that
be
was
one of
one
my
of my
questions.
questions.
I knew that would be one of your questions.
So the second one is S&M?
S&M precast.
Okay. Makes more sense now.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, that mistake made it past my proofreader there, Chris. Yeah. On Wednesday, May the 2nd, we did open bids for the alternate basin structure bid, and these structures are for the construction of the alternate basin, which will start construction somewhere the 1st of June, once we get all the structures and materials in, preparing for it as we speak. We've got 3 bids open that day. Old Castle, obviously the lowest bid at $32,989, then $34,008 from S&M, and $39,947 from Forterra. Again, those are the only 3 precast manufacturers in the state, as far as I'm aware of. At this time, I recommend, or I will, at the council meeting, for the council to approve the purchase of those structures from Old Castle Precast.
Mr. Spalding, this basin is on,
This is straight across the road from our Wilson Road basin that we just completed on Wilson Road.
it's on Wilson Road?
Mhm. Yes. It's on the west side of Wilson Road, backs up to Marbury Trace Apartments there.
It backs up to Mulberry Trace?
Yeah, in between Wilson Road and Marbury Trace, in that valley.
Right there, where, on Wilson Road, right there where.
Yeah, just south of the cell tower. Part of the basin actually sits on the cell tower property.
Okay, move to your next one.
Second item I have, number 5 on the agenda there, is the South Wilson Road closure. As part of the construction of the alternate basin, as far as the dirt moving that has to be performed in order to raise Wilson Road 4 feet at the Centennial Road extension. We're gonna have to, the E-Town Gas will have to relocate their gas main, to lower it for a box culvert extension. The water district is gonna have to lower their water main, 8-inch water main, as part of the box culvert extension. And Brandenburg Telephone has to relocate their entire communication line from the east side of the road to the west side of the road. Along with us having to remove the asphalt and raise the road 4 feet, all gonna require the road to be closed. Like to have done it sooner, but with school letting out, we thought June 4th would be the best time to close it down between Shelton and Fairmont Road. And
How long will it take?
predict probably at least take 3 months. We'd like to say we'd have it back open by the time school open back up, and if everything goes smooth and the weather cooperates, it could be a chance of that. But just to hedge the bets, I would think it could extend a little bit into the fall season of school.
How are the houses down through there gonna access their property?
There's 3 houses that have direct access. We provide them access on both ends. We can get them out.
So they'll continue to have access?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really thrilled. There's a lot of work going on in front of their house that affects them right now. They are tickled pink with the improvements being made. They're all happy, so dealing with them they're being pretty,
Cooperative?
yeah, cooperative.
You said 3 months?
Yes. A lot of work going on. We have to put in a box culvert. Obviously, I think it's gonna take them probably, the 3 utilities, at least 3 to 4 weeks to get all their stuff out of the way before we may be able to do a few things while they're in there working, but we kind of limit it for space because everybody's gonna be working in the same space.
Are they closing that road off completely, that Fair Lanes, what you're talking about as well?
When everything's
Fairmont
done,
Lake.
When everything's done, right.
we'll close Fairmont off.
Right.
But obviously, we need it right now because
Correct,
of the
correct.
bypass.
Desperately need it now.
Yeah.
With that being
Yeah.
gone.
So, but we'll get the signs out, our reader board sign, and we'll designate it here shortly, put it out there and say road will be closing June 4th. That'll give them about 4 weeks' notice. Of course, Jamie,
Are
as
you gonna
always.
give them a detour route?
Uh,
Or are you just gonna say roads closed? Because not everybody's from here.
well, when they get shut off at Fairmont, there's about only one detour route, and that's go on Fairmont and get on Dixie.
But
I
if
think we
you're
need to
coming-
put it on Quixie or something on the news board. That would be the best place to put it. Obviously, all the emergency services, Jamie takes care of that, all the emergency services, and Chief Cross and Jamie Harrison have already got with me on
But
that.
if you're southbound on Wilson, you don't have Fairmont, so
Yeah,
how
you'll
are
have to
they
go
gonna
off-
know
you'll
how
have
to
to go
get
off on
around if you
Shelton.
don't
Yeah,
give them
you'll
a
have-
detour route?
You'll have to go off on Shelton. Obviously, they can make
For
the
the
back.
last left they can take.
Last left is Blackjack, and we have closed it off up there before, and people still run the last time when we built Wilson, we closed the road down on certain days, and they would,
Can you put a sign that?
yeah,
last left
yep,
and the
and
last
we
right
will.
sign?
We did the last time too.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
okay.
did the last time too, when we did the work on Wilson. We try to deflect as many people we can off on the Blackjack.
Yeah, good deal.
'Cause
Also,
that last right, I'm sorry. man.
Go ahead, go ahead.
That last right is down there by Lincoln Trail. Is that what I'm thinking about?
No.
No.
Possibility mean when you're heading northbound?
No, you're
No.
too
You
far
head-
south.
You head north.
Head
I'm
northbound, the
heading
last right you have is at 434 or Lincoln, the hospital.
Where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah, we wanted,
Oh,
we
this is
wanted,
mine.
Yeah, I'm thinking about
we
coming.
want to deflect as many people off on those 2 roads as possible. You're right.
Okay,
Definitely, we want to try to keep them off Fairmont.
exactly.
And we've been in discussions with the state about that. They'd like to keep them off Fairmont too, because obviously when they get on Fairmont, they got to cross 31W and get on it. So,
Also concurrent with this, you're starting the work on the alternate basin.
yeah,
And the dirt that you need, the fill that you need for the raising the road 4 feet comes from that.
from the alternate basin.
So there's 2 things going on at the same time.
So is that why we're doing both projects at the same time? Because you're needing that dirt?
They are linked in that way, and they just happen to coincide together real seamlessly. We're finishing up the last of the property work right now on the alternate basin. We'll definitely have all that completed by June 4th, and we won't need the dirt by June 4th, because like I said, the first thing that's gonna happen is E-Town Gas has gotta lower their gas main, water main's gotta be lowered, and Brandenburg's gotta move their telephone lines.
So the idea is you want to finish this basin to use it, or make sure I'm clear on that. Say that again?
There's 40,000 yards of dirt that comes out of that basin
Right.
just because it happens to be that way. That's the way it's engineered. It's got to be that way in order to get the volume in there. We need some dirt up at the Song Basin. We need some dirt over at the on the Quiggins Basin along Centennial,
Okay.
and we need about 10,000 yards of dirt on the Wilson Road raising. So it's convenient that that dirt is right there, and we did put this off to the end to get that dirt from there because it's conveniently located.
Are there gonna be anything else that you need to bid out with either of these two projects?
I don't.
Is that our last bid?
I don't know at this time. There'd be a pipe bid that's gonna come out. This alternate basin has a substantial amount of pipe on it, estimated to be around the $60,000 range, so we will bid that out. We don't need the pipe. Initially, when we get started, we might not need it for months. So the concrete pipe is a lot less. It comes from a different supplier. It's around the $5,000 range, so it'll be quoted out. We get 3 quotes on it. It's a $5,000 purchase. So we'll be able to get started on that. The alternate, the basin structures are more, so this is what we need to get started as far as on the basin.
So do you see this fixing our problem, Toby? Because I know that when we had the last rain pretty heavy and everything, it still flooded in an area a whole lot. Do you still see this being a fix for us?
As far as, you talking about the 7 inches we had the last time, not this last rain, because nobody's seen it, obviously.
Well, you know, I'm talking about the area where we got the little walking trail and everything.
Yeah.
It flooded pretty much over there, so.
Yeah, at that time, we only had, because the gates weren't installed
Okay.
on the basin that we got completed. Turner Lane Basin was the only one completed.
Okay.
Obviously, we shut down the Walmart Basin at that one, and it had a substantial amount of water in it. The other 3 basins were not operational. So yes, that would have been resolved with all this. It wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been over the road, as you say, for a couple of days at that time.
Okay.
Any other questions on that before I move on to the North Lawston Parkway drainage study? I didn't look back to see when we were here the last time when we talked about doing that master plan study of the North Lawston area. I know I've recommended that we get that done in this year and have this public meeting before July 1st. They're finishing up the study right now. Actually, they have it completed. They've got some recommendations to me. But we're prepared to go to, like to have a public meeting on May 29th. Let me confirm that date. That's May 29th at 6 p.m. for anybody located in that area to not only come to us with maybe flooding issues as far as it pertains to the Bramlett, Timberwood area, but any other drainage concerns they may have in that other area, because we're doing a lot of study and drainage work. We'll be doing a lot of drainage work in that area.
Can we see that study before you have this meeting?
Sure, yeah.
Will you get a copy of us to us?
Might need to give me a week because I need to review it myself. We wanted to get the date set so that we can get the input from the public, but also we'll have some idea as far as budget time, how any of these recommendations is going to affect the stormwater budget is what I was pushing them for.
Do you have complaint logs from that area?
We keep, not really on flooding. We don't document those like we do when people call in to say that your rear ditch is overgrown or got standing water in it. Yes, we keep those.
Why wouldn't you keep the flooding too?
Because it's, obviously, we take pictures of it and we document it, but we don't really document it for property owners. We document it in areas. We know what areas they are because it's one time in 10 years. It's not a specific request that has to do with one property address. Usually it's a flooding of a road or something. Those are the ones I'm talking about.
So you have quite a bit.
Everybody knows about 97 and 2008 because we got pictures and we store those. But we don't store them with a specific address because when they call, it's not really about their house, it's about flooding.
This recent flood, I only saw one area with minimal flooding down in that area. So I don't know.
Yeah,
That was Timberwood or right there, but that's.
Yeah, you don't want to be lulled into thinking something ain't happening because sinkholes behave differently every rain event.
Well, that's why I asked about the log, because
Exactly.
I need to be able to assess priority level. You know, we're about to talk about some pretty heavy issues, and so for me, you know, the flooding log would be critical for me to kind of get an idea of how bad the problem is over there. So, so I would be interested in looking at some historical data, because I agree with Chris. I mean, I have property over there, and when I go over there, you know, I haven't had much of a flooding issue.
Well, 97 and 2008 are the two events that are flooded, and it's pretty much was the same on Quiggins.
Right, I guess,
in the Happy Valley
yeah, I
area.
guess for me, you're talking about 97 and 2008.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 2017, 2016, 2015,
Mm-hmm.
2014 on South Wilson. So
Yeah.
every year, that road is practically underwater at some point or another, and I don't see the same threat level
Yeah.
on North Loxton Parkway.
Well, obviously, houses were only underwater in 97 in this area that we're doing work on
Right,
right
but
now.
then after the 2008 flood, we did substantial work over there. So I've got pictures of that whole area during that big rainstorm. It was a record-breaking rainstorm according to the news.
In 2008.
No, this
It
year.
had flooded that whole area,
Yeah.
actually.
This year.
Off of Timber, you talking about off of Timber.
Yeah, so I think.
And there's no
So my
issues.
point is just to get some kind of historical context about this potential project on North Loxton.
Mhm.
So
That'll be available and presented with, to the public also, but, we can get a copy of it to you all beforehand,
Yeah,
obviously.
because you said you had that, so
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
give us that with the study?
Well, I need to review what he gave me first. I just received it on Friday, so I haven't had a chance to get through his.
How soon can you get it to us then?
I'd say a week.
Well, why can't we review it at the same time you're reviewing it?
Well, I think I need to review it and take the whatever errors, and I'd like to get my head into it first on his
But if we
recommendations.
paid for the study, why can't I see it at the same time you're seeing it? I don't understand that.
I don't even know what format he's got it in right now, because I haven't had a chance to review it yet. So, I need to go through his hydraulic studies to make sure that he's got the right area going to the right basin, his parameters as far as what rain events he's using and stuff. So that's the first part of the review.
How much did we pay for the study?
It brought up the last meeting, I think it was right at 50-some thousand.
$50-some thousand. And you don't know if it's even a correct study?
Well, Barbara, I ain't had a chance to review it. I'll trust the result when I get into it, but I mean, if we want to push the meeting off and not have the meeting, that's fine. We can just discuss it in here. I mean, the May 29th meeting is for the property owners and homeowners a chance to get their feedback. Not really, it doesn't really have any political ramifications to it. Basically, it's a seek and find for us to see whether there's any issues that we should be looking for that we haven't looked at. Is what the whole public meeting is for.
Again, Toby, I think the question, like I said, was how soon can you get the study to us?
I'd say about a week.
Okay.
Can you make me a copy of what you have
Yeah, I'll make all
tomorrow?
6. I don't
With
know.
the information that Councilman
yeah,
Parkman's talking about.
Terry, I think the May 29th meeting is great. I don't
Okay.
think the timing has anything to do with it.
Well, we picked, we didn't want to pick a Wednesday night, or usually when I do public meetings, we don't try to do them on Wednesdays, either a Tuesday and Thursday. I think that's a Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think the timing of that meeting is not relevant to the questions
Okay.
that, at least the questions I'm asking.
Yeah,
So I don't have a problem with that.
A copy's fine.
yeah,
That's
okay.
fine.
I believe that,
I'll swing by tomorrow and pick up my copy.
that's all we have from you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Toby.
All right, you're welcome, Stan.
Thank you.
The next item is, it's time for doing another contract with Hardin County Educational Television. If you looked at the old contract, it was for $36,000 at $120 an hour. This one is for $3,750 and $125 an hour. And I would like for you to look at the quality of what we're doing ourselves and see if you like it. We're talking about saving money. This might be one of the ways. We're in City Council Chamber at Radcliffe City Hall, 411 West Lincoln Trail Boulevard, Radcliffe, Kentucky. And the meeting that is scheduled for that time in this place will now come to order. The invocation today will be given by Pastor Chris Johnson from New Hope Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay, TJ, we don't have to watch that all the time. I just wanted them to see that there is quality in what we have, and we have archived that, and we have a DVD every time we do this, and right now we're only doing it for work sessions. But that's the quality of what we have. And it's also streaming live. So,
I don't think there's any question on the quality. I think the camera, the voice seems to be fine. It seems like it's clear. I don't think there's any question of the quality that Mr. Jeffries has been able to turn out.
Okay, it's just another way we might be able to save some money, and you just need to think about it. I signed the last one on the 16th of June of last year, so it's coming up next month.
Okay.
So this new one just basically has the official meetings for HCTV?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
And we
just-
would continue to do the work session?
Yes,
Okay. And any other special meeting?
and any other special meeting, unless we change it and do all of it ourselves.
Right. But this 3750 is
That's
going to
ju-
cover
that's-
all of our
That's
official
ju-
meetings?
No, that covers only the 12 meetings.
Right, the
If-
12 official
Yeah,
meetings.
the 12 official
Gotcha.
meetings.
Good job.
Okay, that is everything that we have.
speak in your microphones.
Okay, that's everything that we had on the agenda for the work session. And we're going to start the town hall meeting at 5:30, so we'll take a break until 5:30.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can we sit down